and meals.
Is that your word for the day?
I just had to have something. We'll see. I'm not seeing any notification popping up that we're live. Can anybody see us out there? This is actually take 2. The first one didn't appear to sync up, and nobody got to see our mindless ramblings. So anyway, here we are. Let me go to discussion. Refresh that. I'm not
there
sure.
we go. Yes, we are. I see Elaine.
Oh, there we are. Good to go. Okay. Holy crap. That was so weird. Yeah, Michael and I talked for 6 minutes, and then we realized, hey, nobody has checked in. We've got 0 viewers.
It couldn't be that we actually gained nobody. It
Yeah,
had to be technology.
We were there, and actually there was some technological foible, so we're not starting 10 minutes late. This is just take 2 because for some reason BeLive didn't sync up with Facebook for their group grope and love fest and manly handshake. So anyway, we're here. We're live now. So yes, thank you for coming back, even though you were never here in the first place. But thank you, Michael, for coming back. I'm coming to you live from the subarctic, where it now gets light at about 5 a.m. Michael is still in Vegas, still. And one of the most important things we just talked about was cooking and favorite meal. You didn't get to the punchline on the tacos. You said because of the you have air purifiers to take care of any
so
kind
what
of.
I was saying is, like, what you had asked, what's my favorite meal to cook, and I had to think through it, and I would say, my favorite meal to cook is probably bacon, egg, and cheese tacos. But we have a condo, and before we had lived in a condo, I didn't realize how the fumes, the smells, the delicious aroma of cooked pork, bacon, would affect a very relatively tiny space, and then it would go out into the hallways, which is really not preferable. Not really looking to let our neighbors smell everything that's inside our condo. So I went through and purchased 3 semi-professional level air purifying systems to try to keep all of the smells and everything inside our condo. And then I said, but the real challenge is chili. I love chili. My wife, not so much. No bueno. No bueno. But there comes a time after a few weeks of not having any chili, and you're in a pandemic, when you start to think crazy thoughts.
Jonesing for chili.
Jonesing for chili. And you start thinking, how can I cook chili where I actually don't create this vast, awesome aroma that goes throughout the location? And what I came up with, and I did come up with something, was, cooking the meat separate. Let's get that done. And then I took the Bodacious chili, which is a real product. It's called Bodacious chili out here in Vegas, and ordered it online. And if you like spice, this is a very good one for me. It's so spicy, it gets me right up to the edge of too much spice, but not quite there for me. And then I poured that into a glass bowl, added like some tomato sauce and stuff with it, mixed it together. Mind you, it was glass, saran wrapped the shit out of the top of that. And then I microwaved it in order to heat it up and get the vast goodness of that spice inside of a liquid. And at the last moment, I poured it into the other part of the chili that I was cooking, in order so the aroma wouldn't sit there and baste the house for 2 or 3 hours. It mostly worked. Mind you, at this point, I had my lovely wife portioned off into the bedroom, said, don't come out here. Just don't. Later, she asked me, so what did you cook? Soup. I cooked soup. If you're not asking me because
that's a win.
Motherfucker.
That was a win. Yeah. And no real Texan would ever call chili soup, so clearly you were lying.
Yes. And, no, you can't cook it in an Instant Pot, at least not that I'm aware of, because the fumes would still get out.
Oh yeah, as soon as you crack the seal to let it vent, oh my God.
Yeah. So I microwaved that. So glass bowl, yes, exactly. Yes, glass bowl. Cooked that part of the chili in there, and then what happened is I unfortunately didn't deal with the quantity of water to solids correctly, and so I really did have a version of chili soup. Which I fixed over the next week and a half by adding a shit ton of carbohydrates to whatever I ate. whether
So
it was rice
massive,
or
massive loaves of sourdough that you were dipping
yes,
into the.
yes, yeah. So my first effort was a solid C minus. For I got a passing grade because my wife did not throw me out of the 25th floor.
Yeah.
That would have hurt on the bounce. And then I gave myself a C minus because, of course, the flavor from Bodacious Chili was there, but I had to take it out for the sheer not chilliness of the thing. So I will try again, I'm sure.
Yeah. But this is, it goes back to being an indie author and an indie publisher. If you see
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't work, you fix it and you move on, you adjust,
Hey,
and you
my
get
life was on the
better.
line. It was.
That's
I just want to say.
my life was on the line. Yeah, we've been cooking. My wife was diagnosed with autoimmune protocol, so we have been cooking very, very cleanly and specifically for a couple years now. So none of that has changed for us. So we're still cooking. We're still cooking some great meals. Now, some of the things that we cooked and prepared are no longer available at the local grocery stores. We went grocery shopping yesterday and couldn't get a couple things, but otherwise we're fine. We're the same. Our house always smells really good because we cook with minimal products and no processed food. So it actually works very well. And I'm down 5 pounds now. Five
Ooh,
pounds in
nice.
2 weeks. Yeah,
Ooh.
tomorrow is the 2 week point of when I started, and I'm down 5 as of today. And if I stay on track, I should be down another pound tomorrow. So I might be 6 total, which I know 2.5 pounds a week is sustainable weight loss. But I was carrying a lot of extra, just eating too much junk. And once I get that cleared out of my system, that was probably
Oh,
five
let's face
pounds
it.
worth of
This because
junk.
okay, so just one update. Bodacious chili that I use is bodaciouschili.com. But let's talk about the fact that part of this was when you went and had to separate and segregate yourself from your wife when she came back from Spain, and you ate like a teenager.
Yes, I was turned loose with a pretty much unlimited grocery budget. I bought freaking potato chips. I had a 2 pound bag of M&Ms that I replaced halfway through because it was gone. And yes, it was really really bad. So yeah, my self isolate. I was doing okay. My self isolation added 5 pounds, which I am now back to where I started before all of that. Before my wife went to Spain and I was trapped at home alone for a month, with an unlimited food budget and unsupervised. So
Unsupervised is the
yes,
important
so
part.
I think that's probably the most important part. So yes, Les Puffy, thank you very much. I because the jowls, when I get over 200, I get the jowls. I get some other unhappiness. My belly is rubbing on things that it shouldn't rub on, and twisting my belt in directions it shouldn't twist. So I've got another 10 pounds before that ends, and then another 10 pounds hopefully before I hit optimal weight of 180. So 17.6 pounds to go to get to that, and then stay there and stop eating 2 pound bag of M&Ms in 2 days.
But they were
Maybe,
good.
but goddamn, they were good. Yeah. So we're here. We're actually here to talk publishing, self-publishing and stuff. I had no agenda today because with a daily show, and plus I'm editing. Here's what I'm doing. I'm rewriting a mystery series. We have new covers. We have it ready to go. I combined everything. It's 250,000 words, Michael. When I combined all of the 8
Oh,
books
good.
and the magnet, so it's exactly 250,000 words, and I'm rewriting the whole thing. I'm a third of the way through in 3 days, so I'm quite pleased with my progress getting this, jamming and focusing, reading the story and driving through it. These conversations always help with all of the guests for the CNM show, because people are talking about here's what I'm doing. It's extra motivation to focus. And I only need an hour at a time. I can rewrite an entire book. These are novellas, 30,000 words. I can rewrite an entire one in 3 hours with being able to focus. I've already done half of one this morning, and I started at 5 and I quit at about 6:20. and got the first 15,000 words done. So it's going very, very well. It's going very quickly because I'm drilled in, I'm focused, my heart's beating right, so that helps. The air is nice and clear because it's the spring in Alaska, so temps are 30s and 40s, which is about perfect for me personally. And then I've got a plan. I need to get this done so I can get back to the Bad Company, my main series, the one I started with Michael. This is the last book in that prime timeline of series, which was 12. This will be the 19th book in a single thread.
I know, you know, thank God you didn't go a few more. Then I'd have to start getting back on it, going, God dang it, I got to get ahead of Craig. And so one question was, my query is just over 500 words. Is it probably too long? I'm assuming this is an agent query or something for a trad house.
No, that's for me.
Oh,
so that's that relates to the TEU 6, the Expanding Universe 6.
Okay.
I called for submissions and said 500 words. So what you do is you take your shot. If you don't comply with the submission guidelines, you take your shot. So 500, if over 500 is 505 words to complete the sentence, that's probably okay. If it's 600 words, that's not okay in any way, shape, or form. And that's something that, and if you don't have it formatted correctly, those are easy to weed out. It could be a great story, but you've got to, you have to comply, especially if you want to get in a trade publication. Their submission guidelines are binary. You either comply with it or you're discounted.
So, Craig, how many submissions are you having to go through to try to pull this together?
Last one I got 60.
Okay.
60 submissions for 20 slots.
So it isn't so much that you're trying to do this to be just persnickety. It's the fact that you have to create some filter. Otherwise, your whole life would be dealing with this.
Yeah. There's only so much margin I can work with. So 500, I can review 500 words in about 2 minutes and go through it. And if I want to give feedback, well, that's probably another 5 minutes. If a 500 word submission is 600, 700 words, and I've had people, oh, here's a whole story you can read. No, I don't have time to read it. So that's a great point, Michael, is this is the filter. It's, if you can do this, then these other things, like I need a one sentence blurb, I need a short bio at the end, and all those things that will, can you follow the directions to make my life easier putting this anthology together? So that's why 500 words. If you start having individual interpretations of the rules, then that means I might have problems later as I'm trying to compile a final project. And the number of quality submissions are so good that I don't need to make concessions to fill slots. So that's it. So over 500, hopefully you mean 505 words and not 600, because 600's right out.
Good. Thank you for answering that. Does having a brand, is it as effective as a series? And what the question I would ask is, like, define effective, right? Are we talking people to recognize you, or are you talking about more sales? Where, which way would you take that one?
Just having a brand as effective as a series.
Now, if you mean like if we put a brand together and it was all under, like, mystery under a brand, and the so personally, of course, I started out with a series, but I also focused on the Cartherian Gambit brand. I didn't focus on LMBPN because I felt that fans, as a reader myself, I would connect to the series. That was what was going to happen, the characters, if you will. That worked incredibly well until about a year into it, when I was starting to branch out and no one had a clue who LMBPN was, or necessarily even Michael Anderle at some point. So it's a two-edged sword. So yes, the series helps you with your brand. The problem is, if you don't co-brand and you wish to branch out on something else, you have shot yourself in the foot. At least I did in that case. And so it took us probably a good year and a half to kind of move over into the LMBPN brand itself.
It's a challenge. And for me personally as well, I wrote my first 4 books were in 3 different genres. So for me, it was important to brand me, because here I had books and each series would continue at a certain in a certain way. So my brand, because of how I started, and I wouldn't recommend that. I would say start with a series make your name, because eventually you're going to tire of writing that series. If you don't, good on you. If there's 100 books, if you write the next Deathlands series with Ryan Cawdor, good on you. Understand, but then that will be your brand. I have 18 series out now, so having one series as a brand would be a significant limitation on my ability to connect to a broader audience. Like, I'm writing a mystery series right now. Mystery series. Hell, you're a science fiction author. Yeah, damn right, I'm a science fiction author. But the mystery series, that's part of my brand. It's me, same name, same kind of style, a shorter, engage, leave you happy at the end, and escapism, a little bit of escape fiction. So this is it goes back to my brand, because the latest one, like I just said, we're doing all of it in one book. So it would kind of suck to brand myself for that series and give them one book. I want to give them all 18 series. I want to give my readers, hey, you need to go check this out. And I got a most astounding email this morning from a fan who said, I read your first 12 books and love the cat. So I'm thinking Free Trader, 9 books plus 3 books in the Cygnus follow-on series. And she says, you're a great author. I list you with my authors that I love to read. I'm moving on to another one of your series. So I loved seeing that, and I sent her a nice note back thanking her. And so that's brand, because once you go beyond a single series, you've got to you need to sell them something else, especially if they like your style. Your style is going to carry over, even if you cross genres, but you got to establish that readership first. That's brand. My 2 cents on it.
And then, so Nadine asks, what is the best strategy to brand your series and the author name?
Ooh, what do you think on that, Michael?
There. That's nice.
You've got a lot of experience in that.
Related to the brand of the series, I do like to get either really vibrant typography now. Even in Cthulhu Gambit, where my ability to stitch anything that looked good together happened to be about the same as sharp Crayolas in a crayon book. There was still an effort to make sure that the font was science fiction. There was an effort to do some of these. Since we've attained relationships with people who can actually cut and paste much better than myself, then we find out which of them are actually better, because some artists are really great at creating the picture of the cover and know that typography needs to go there, but frankly some of them cannot do any better typography than myself. And so we do know which artists are able to accomplish that a little bit better. And then we're going to rebrand a couple of series ourselves, which been out for 2 or 3 years, and we're going with complete different logos. We're trying to tone down some of the features that, what did we do wrong back then? Well, now after the sales have come in, we can kind of see, okay, that actually took a hit. Why do we think it took a hit? Well, let's pull that back out of the covers so it's not so much into, that trope, if you will, is not so much highlighted. And then on our names, the one rule I had in the beginning was the names of the authors, the collaborators, were the same size. And whoever wrote most of the book, their name was on top. That was my definition. Now, since then, I certainly understand. And what I was doing was I was reacting to like Clive Cussler books, where you see this massive Clive Cussler, and then, along with whoever was the co-writer, when as a reader, it's like, you're not fooling me. I know that this other person wrote most of this book. I don't think that's right. Mind you, I said right, like justice, which is part of my emotional part. And what it meant was, when you put Clive Cussler's name in 400-point font, then you're using that brand of Clive Cussler to sell this book, and they would. So I lost out by making that choice of not putting Michael Anderle. But I didn't know any better. And I'm not really sure that I didn't do it right anyway, although I'd have to ask each particular collaborator, do they prefer to have us equally, or would they have, it wouldn't have felt as right? I know I've spoken with one author who's written with Clive, and the comment that I was given at that point was, I didn't really get any fans from that. The expectation was that a bunch of Clive's fans would move over to him, and that really didn't happen. And so I think that perhaps we did do it correctly, because the point was to elevate the collaborator, not myself, in this. And the fans do know who the collaborators are. So that was a decision on my part. And you, Craig?
It brings me back to the Deathland series written by James Axler. James Axler is a pen name, and so you have different authors who actually wrote those books throughout the 150 books that are in the series, or whatever it is now. Drink Coke, drink more Coke. So and we tried that. We went with a couple. I went with C.H. Gideon for my military pen name, and it became. Now I lost readers unless I was willing to develop that as its own brand. Michael Anderle was Michael Anderle, and that was the brand, and that needed to be big and center, and a Michael Anderle production kind of thing, where it's like a Mel Brooks production. It's right there. It's huge, and it's like, okay, hey, I know what I'm getting, and this is marketing. It's not ego. And so, yes, I thank you for letting me put my name first on our collaborated books. But it's still from a marketing perspective, and we've always been about the bottom line. The bottom line, putting my name first, helped me establish my brand, so my books do sell pretty well, and have allowed me to establish my own readership, which is cool. But if I initially just wanted to sell more books, Michael Anderle in big font, that would have done it more. So these are things you have to take into account when you're doing the brand. And I think Michael Anderle did it right in having both names, and whoever wrote the most of the story was first. So I would not recommend a pen name unless you're willing to give it 100% of your effort to establish that as a brand. But then the benefit of that is once it's established as a brand, then you can have anybody write with you or for you on that series, and you just, hey, it's this pen name. But then you lose your own. That's not as friendly of an ego stroke if you're not listed anywhere. It's this James Axler. You have to dig behind the scenes to find out who actually wrote which of those books.
So I use a lot of pen names in the company, right? Some of the reasons we do it is the subjective belief is we look at the sales that multiple names start cutting into the sellability of people looking at a book, because they go, okay, I don't know anybody anyway, right? So when I look at this cover and I really love it and I love the title and I see a name, do I believe one writer wrote this, or do I believe two writers put together, or do I believe three people did it, or whatever? And while you do have like even James S.A. Corey, that's two guys, one name, right? And so, we have this. And so my personal belief is that one name typically would be better. That's one tactical reason to do it. I've used pen names because Michael Anderle is kind of known for closed door. If anything's going to go on, it's closed door. Michael Anderle probably curses a storm, but in general, these are the other attributes of the brand, Michael Anderle. Well, I wanted to get into some things that were not so middle of the road YA. I mean, YA gave me they could deal with the cursing. It's the sex that I think they had the biggest problem with. But when I chose to do the Protected by the Damned series, I knew for sure the gloves were going to be off with the ribald adult humor. It was going to be adult. And
ribald.
Yes, very ribald. And so I chose to go with the pen name Michael Todd. It was also at the time where Michael Anderle had just pages and pages of books. And I wanted something where people could get something new again. So we went with Michael Todd as a pen name. And then we said created by Michael Anderle in order to facilitate the fact that it had marketing power with Amazon. So written by Michael Todd, created by Michael Anderle. And then we started building the Michael Todd brand. And there were still things I wouldn't put under Michael Anderle, which we have under Michael Todd, because it is a more adult focus. It's not that I mean that there's a bunch of total open door sex, but the jokes are definitely there. There were some things that Pandora, which is a multi-millennial old demon, says about sex, which, makes me blush to this day. And so, but they're funny. They're so funny. So that's
funny when you do it. It's funny when you do it in your books.
Yeah, really. But even, we have a task that we're doing with another pen name, because we need to acquire also bots. And anything with LMBPN, we're blessed where the fans will go and buy just by the name of LMBPN, but does it really screw up the also bots? Well, we had made this particular project so super secret that Craig is like, who the hell is so and so?
Who's this? Well, I think I used the term goofy bastard, but so and so works.
I was like, oh, I guess I haven't spoken to you about that. Huh. It's like, that's actually us. But the reason is that we're not putting our company name, we're not putting any connections, we're not mentioning it because we're trying to acquire also bots that are outside of the typical strategic realm of LMBPN.
And that are aligned with the other readership to bring new readers into the brand. Yes. Into the Michael Anderle greater universe brand rather than the Michael Todd brand. Michael Todd is a stepping stone.
Well, no, in this case, we have the individual that we're doing is in urban fantasy, and there are great, massive urban fantasy also bots. But as soon as our fans know about it's us doing it, like if it was Martha Carr and myself, or Judith Barons, which is a pen name for Martha Carr and myself, then all of a sudden our also bots, we don't get some of the big names in urban fantasy anymore. And so it's not like we can show up on their books and then their fans, when looking for something from them or similar, can't look in the also bots below and go, oh, well, whoever liked this book also liked X, and then find them.
Yeah.
So
it's free advertising. That is the also bots, for those who aren't aware, is like free advertising from Amazon. It's just, hey, people who bought this book also bought, and what you want. Seeing other people's books in your also bots, cool, but when you go over to theirs, that's when you want to see yours. So seeing the also bots of yours, it's not as important as seeing your book in other people's. And the first page, I think it's 6 or 7, depending on your screen resolution, of also bots.
Or even on the author page, people who liked X author also liked so and so, and it's really hard, and so that's why we're doing the test. And it's probably going to end up being, like a $60,000 test to see what's going on. We'll get the money back. That's not a problem, but it is a impressive costing test.
Yeah, you do some expensive testing, man.
Yeah, true.
Like the chili. So when's round 2 of the chili coming?
I'm thinking I'm probably good. Oh, so interestingly enough, this is almost heretical, this discussion I'm about to have, which is canned chili. Canned chili to me is almost heretical, because if you go Hormel, you're damn near the stuff that you put on top of hot dogs. And I have a can of Hormel. When the pandemic hits, I'm like, I got to have something. This was the only thing available, because I do not like beans. I do not like vegetables. I just want meat and flavoring.
Is there a support line that you can call for that?
Yeah, I need to make one. I seriously do need to make one. So the other day, I was having a quality breakfast of Tostitos, the new Cantina chips. Oh my God, they're so great if you get a chance to get them. With cheese, lots of it melted on top. 45 seconds in the microwave gives you a nice, sedate melt. And a can of Kroger original chili, no beans. So I open this thing, I put some into a glass bowl with saran wrap on top to melt it. So get the nachos, I get this. It was very tasty. It tasted the consistency of going to a good Tex-Mex restaurant, and the chili that the meat chili they would put on that. So I finished off the chips, and I still have a fair amount of chili. And instead of trying to wrap it I go, screw it. I just heated up the whole thing. Now, here's my thoughts after that. From a can perspective, very solid B-. Very solid, which is ridiculous because I expect everything to be D's and F's. Yeah. From a standpoint of consistency, when you're actually eating it as a bowl, not as nice, because all of the meat is about the same, minor, very small grain, Yeah. So adding a shit ton of carbohydrates into it helps immensely, along with chili or ketchup and other things. But adequate. So I bought another can in case the worst happens, and it's like brains, and I'm like, well, screw it now. The apocalypse happens. I have not been able to get the gumption up to open up that Hormel can of chili yet. I still think it's like, unless I have hot dogs available, I'm probably screwed. But
I have to say, I like Hormel chili. I like Hormel chili on a hot dog with a fresh
hot dog. It is good. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just not sure about it in a bowl. And I have like I don't know. I have a couple of pounds of bodaciouschili.com chili mix
Okay.
available to me. So
Yeah,
I'm a far
you might have been lacking on that, so it's good to see.
Yeah. I like that. I love Hormel.
Yeah,
Yeah, Dean.
I actually have a can as well of Hormel no beans. So
Damn right, no beans.
But I haven't broken into it. I have not been as desperate as
neither
Michael.
I have not. It was the
Oh,
Kellogg's that it did.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's almost like a beef product as opposed to
yes
beef. So you can
which
tell
I love on a hot dog. I don't know, but the Kellogg was not beef product.
Okay.
So
good.
Yes.
Well, I wish you well that someday when you finally wrap up the condo and say, "Hey, we're not coming back to Vegas because Cabo is just so cool," that you take that can and say, "I'm glad I never had to eat you."
Yes. I'm sure that's excellent. Did we mention on here that I went looking for a place I could rent for a couple of days just to cook chili in it?
Yes. Yeah, okay. You said that. And you couldn't find one because they're locked down on new.
Yeah, because you can't.
New rentals.
There's no rentals here anymore. But I did. I went to a place trying to find some which had a kitchenette so I could cook a good thing of chili and just mess up.
Let it simmer. See, that was what you. That's what you shortcut because you said, "Well, I'm going to do it this way," and by not letting it simmer, the flavors don't embed into the meat like they should. So yes. Because we talked about that, it's like, fuck, man, you got to have it simmer. Well, I can't have the smell, or I'm going to die. Okay, well, let's not have simmering then.
I was in a parking lot at Target, and Craig and I were talking about the quality of how to make chili, and I had to go. I couldn't find my favorite barbecue place, Jesse Ray's. I don't think was open at that time, and I went and tried another one. I feel like such a slut for trying the secondary barbecue place, and it was good too, by the way. It was Famous Dave's here in Vegas, but
Famous Dave's is good, yeah.
Really? Because I mean, I noticed that I still had somewhere around here. I have the menu. Oh, there it is. And the thing that you and I were excited about was I was like, oh my God, Dave's award-winning chili. They have chili at this place.
Yeah. And then you didn't get it.
No, because it was full of beans.
Oh, fuckers. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, get out. Get out. So, what award did you win with that?
So different things that are going on the publishing side. Sorry. Thank you for routing us back in.
Thanks for
questions.
Question. Where we need questions. We need questions so that we can talk about. You've got Michael Anderle here. Michael Anderle, come on, man. Come on. People
we can talk chili or Craig and his butts.
Yeah,
your questions.
Well, one might lead to the other. The Michael is our keynote speaker for 20 Books Vegas, and I'm looking at online versions of what we have to do if for some reason Vegas cancels. I know conventions are pretty much canceled through August now. San Diego Comic-Con just canceled. San Diego Comic-Con, tens of millions of dollars lost revenue there.
If you're paying attention to anything that's going on in the chat, and you would happen to like a Kindle Fire 8-inch, ask a question. Make sure that I can know who you are. Like either give me an email or something. I will pick somebody out of it and send you guys an 8-inch Kindle. I'll get it shipped out today.
Paperwhite or is it a paperwhite or is
Judith, it's the Fire, which are colors.
Okay.
The colors.
Yep. Okay.
Judith, actually, that's the point. We are testing it without LMVPN. There is no, and on that one particular pin name, we're not using our email. We're not using our we're just using our marketing skills, that type of thing that's going on, and we're trying to claw our way. So, so I think that we're getting a really good understanding of what's going on. It can be done. It certainly helps if you have a little bit more money to make it happen faster. But once again, remember, money doesn't, it can help things go faster, assuming that you know what you're doing, but that doesn't mean time won't get you the same thing. It's kind of time or money, which one do you want? So we're not using LMVPN. We're not using our names. We're not using any acknowledgement from our email list, our Facebook, our social. We have, tens of thousands of social connections that we could use. We're not using any of those on that. So that's why it's taking a while. But we did go up to We had a 4-figure month, the first month that we started releasing books using the fast release cycle and some ads, and then I haven't looked at it lately, but we're heavy into 4 figures. I'd love to get to 5 figures by month 4 or 5. That would make me very happy, but we'll see what happens. But we also had a slight gotcha. I had planned a 9-book series on this, and I like stories very much. The author Nathan Lowell, not the character Nathan Lowell, but the author Nathan Lowell, where it's almost slice of life. The adventure happens while life happens, and so it didn't resonate as well as the go get it, get a closure, go get it, get a closure methodology. So we're revamping and pulling books 1, 2, and 3 back into one story, because at the end of that trilogy there's some conclusion. And then we'll release 4, 5, 6 is a big book, and 7, 8, 9 is a big book. And then we're releasing another series where the books have conclusion at the end of that is part of the pen name. So we're retooling based on that. So.
And Judah's question, looks like you already knew the right answer. So that's how it is.
Okay. My 60K test would be, oh goodness. I think that there's still some value in doing 25, 30,000 word shorts just to see if you get read through, because I think that's really compelling. But yeah, I mean, 60s, 50s are hard with the money standpoint from KU, really making it worthwhile. But 60s, 70s is where I started Arthurian Gambit. But man, you're gambling up 210,000 words that you have a good story. How do you test it? And
yeah,
if you're willing, if you're someone who reads a lot, I mean, if you're coming into this game like, I want to make money as an author, and you really haven't read a lot, then you're going to be challenged. For myself, I am my main fan. So do I like it, and why? So I tested these things against myself. But the other way I told people to do it is find some people who love this genre that you're trying to do, and give them 3,000 words. You're just asking for a 1, 2, or 3. 1 is, where's the next set of 3,000 words? 2 is, you know what, this is good. Let me know when some more shows up. And 3 is, I didn't finish it. And 2 is not where you want. You want them going, where's the next part of this? You go back and retool that 3,000 words to the best of your ability to get them to really engaged. Once I think you get past like 9 to 15,000 words into the story, you might not need to be as aggressive about making sure you capture them, because now they're invested. I found out that, the real part of my first part of the story, the fans actually weren't invested until halfway into the book when I sunk the hook. But apparently they at least went with me that far for the most part. So once that happened, they were truly hooked, and they kept going.
Yeah, 60K word. The big challenge with that, from my perspective, is your time. As a new author, it takes you a lot longer to get 60K words than a well-established author who you have your routine, you can jam the words. But 60K words, that might take you a year to write. Do you want to do that with zero input, knowing that it's going to be okay? And that's you have to hit those gates, those milestones and signposts that says, hey, I would keep reading. And when you read other things, subconsciously, you're making that decision at each page. Do I keep reading or not? And then if you start skipping pages because you want to know something, put that into your own reading, in your own writing. Don't write stuff that they're going to skip. And you subconsciously know, because you as a reader, and this is why I think it's important to be a reader, is that you subconsciously know this resonates or this doesn't. So we have a new question. Cadillac editor we can't quite afford yet.
Yeah, but let me answer Judith. One thing that I failed, and I appreciate your question, I failed. This pen name that we're doing is using work for hire authors in order to be able to build the product line. So in this case, I'm involved from the standpoint of creating concepts and other stuff, but I'm not writing this piece. 3/4 of that chunk of that money is going toward paying for the books and the editing and everything else. Not all marketing.
Yeah.
So found a Cadillac editor, can't quite. How do I find someone that is good enough? So Cadillac editor, I'm going to assume that means that these people are going to edit your story. They're developmental editors versus, say, proofreading editors or copy editors. And the answer to that one is you don't need Cadillac editors. You can actually use some people who've read in that genre. A lot of them are really good. We know this from having used them ourselves. But Cadillac editors have probably a certain opinion about how things need to go. And some of them I've met are stellar, star quality, help amazingly well. And other ones can potentially take you off your voice because the way they believe something needs to work doesn't jive with how you need to write. And so there's a challenge there from that perspective. And you, Craig?
Depends what you need. It all goes back to your personal needs. If you've written a few books and they're not resonating with readers, there's probably a problem with the story. And this isn't, hey, you've put it in a few people's hands, you're not getting any reviews. People have bought it, they're not reviewing it, they're not buying. You read through tanks after one book. Those kind of indicators that say there's probably something wrong with your story. Then if you've sought help or had help and you still have those same stories, then yes, you may want to look into a different way to evaluate the quality of your work. Quality being defined as what readers are willing to buy. If they're not buying your stuff after you're putting it in their hands, then there's an issue that needs to be checked. So Cadillac editor, how about a better editor than the one you had? You just need to get different input to help you. If you have no books and you're looking, hey, I want the best editor ever, that may not be what you need. So really look at what your need is and fill it with the best value you can get for your dollar. It might be like, for me, my best value is my insider team, because they read so many damn books. They know inherently after the first page, after the first chapter, after the first half of the book, that they want to keep reading or not. And they give me that honest feedback. Like, I get one, he says, I wanted to stop right here. Well, hell, let me go there and let me fix what that is. If it's because he didn't like the character that he's not supposed to like, well, that's a different issue than, hey, the story just grinds to a halt, it takes a left turn, and I lose the readers. Because there's so many books out there, people are willing to move on. Don't give them a chance to move on. So that would be my recommendation.
Real quick answer to Dean's, do you analyze the ride to market trends for the next big thing? And the answer is no. But once again, that's a little bit of a misnomer, because if LMBPN decides to go write something and we write 4 to 6 different series into it, we kind of create the next big thing. And now we've done it twice. But there was like the prisoner romance thing that went on. And there's a few others. So if you get enough writers to all write in a genre, it becomes a big thing, so to speak.
Well, and unlike Reverse Harem, which took off because somebody wrote one and it took off, and other people started writing and they started getting huge sales. They were trying, the writers, some of the main writers in that genre said, let's try prison romance. And they kicked off, and people were trying to be at the front of that. I don't know if that genre ever took. I don't know if those sales are worth the effort, because I'm not seeing, they started ramping up greatly. We saw the prison covers and that prison UF. And then all of a sudden, those dropped off in a hurry. I think the people trying to drive that train realized that it wasn't resonating and moved on to something else. And I don't know what that something else is right now. So I think that one is a good example of when you try to drive the trend, as opposed to operating at the margins of the trend. Like J.K. Rowling, she drove the trend of the Magical Academy. And a lot of people have benefited from that as they're pushing the envelope and the margins of that genre.
The ones we've been very successful with is going back to tropes that have resonated for decades that are out of favor. You know, when I hit vampire wasn't in favor.
That's
but
right.
I liked vampire movies or books, not so much movies, but you know, I liked vampires. So when I created this off the wall vampire stuff, I hit into a trope where it still had a large amount of fans, but it wasn't popular in the sphere at the moment. So same thing for YA Academy, the same thing for, you know, whenever we chose to go into dragons, it's like we all love dragons. The trope is a big one, but there weren't a lot of dragon books. It's kind of like when Chris Fox did the whole, you know, one drunk captain spaceship theme. He looked at it, he's like, okay, there's availability here. And they moved in. But no, we don't. I'm aware and I read some of these articles, but typically no. I'd rather find one than one that's already hitting.
Yeah, I go with the bigger theme, space opera, character driven, and leave it at that, and then explore that. So, new question: what's best used for a killer short story? And killer, hopefully, that's readers' words and not yours, because that's it has to resonate with the readers. So, what do you do with I have 20, 25 different short stories. I pretty much just give them all away as reader magnets. Here's a style of my writing.
Emails is what we typically would use it for, and we would use it off of what's the company that we use for that, Craig, to grab emails?
Book Funnel.
Yes, Book Funnel.
Yeah, Damon Courtney and Book Funnel.
Yeah, so that's how we would use it. In fact, we've even had books or short stories, novelettes written strictly for grabbing email names, because the value of a good email name is so much for you over the life of your company.
It's massive. And the thing I learned is I had a reader magnet, a free short story that was just an extra story, but it wasn't representative of my main stories, my books. So I now give that away as just an added bonus. Oh yeah, here's a different story that I wrote. But my automation sequence, I have 5, and I give away 6 different books, 6 different stories with representative my style. My very best one is the first one, and one of the towards the end, I give away an audio as well. So it's like here's my best stuff. If you like this, then try some of my books. So that's what I use. So killer, if that's representative of your books, then absolutely I give them away. Anthologies are okay, but I don't make any money off them. But I do make money off getting a new reader on board a lot.
And then 80, excellent point. But really the question that I was answering there is, at least in my mind, what I was answering is there are reports out there. Craig probably would remember the name of the guy that does them. And they will show you what's hot, what's not, what's underserved, what's overserved, and all of the genres and tropes that are related to that. I look at that because it's interesting to me, but we don't set up books in effort to hit those charts. But yes, writing tropes to market it, technically it is, but generally what they mean is writing to market for that which is hot right now. And that we don't really do.
Yeah. I need to, I don't know who this is, but they're hard over on this. How do you settle? You can't afford it. You don't get to drive a Ferrari today. I mean, it's the basic, and this is something Joe Solari and I talk about a lot. You have to spend only the money you have. Borrowing early in your career before you know that you're successful is challenging because guess what? Most authors don't make a full-time living off their writing. But with these tools, with the things at 20 books of 50K, it improves your chances, because still we don't know about your diligence. We don't know about the quality of your stories. We don't know about your marketing chops or your ability to put in the time and effort to improve yourself as you're climbing up the mountain of success. So
yeah, you might do something stupid like kill dogs, kill the love
interest. Don't do that, or kill your main character. He wasn't my main character. Well, the readers thought he was, so yeah. But how can you settle? You have to deal with that. Manage your business. Put on your business hat. Take off your artist hat, and say you can't buy this guy because you don't have the money. So get one that you can afford. You're trying to make an emotional argument with a business guy, and it's not working on me. So yeah. Sorry, I don't know who you are because I can't. All I see is Facebook user. But that's sorry. Put on your business hat, take off your artist hat, and do the right thing by your business.
Yeah, there's a question related to the used AI to translate, and that's DeepL, DeepL. Is the software that we use, and it is doing very well. We're constantly or oftentimes in the top 300 of the store. We are doing very, very well. The growth is amazing for what we're doing. So we'll be on our way to $500,000 in German translations this year. On our way to, I don't expect to hit it, but I do expect that we'll be past it by next year. And so we have 20 something books right now. We'll be at the 40 book range. We've signed Dakota Kraut's series. We're about to sign one other Lit RPG series, and we're really happy with it. Why why did I do it that way versus the human translator? We did do human translators for the first 12 books. They're very slow, all things considered, compared to what you have to do. We own the rights because we come at it with already a translated work, and the person is effectively a good proofreader is what they are. That's what we're hiring. We're not hiring an editor, so to speak.
Or a translator.
Yeah, a translator specifically. So a little bit more proofreader / editor than translator. I understand the same technology does great for going into Chinese if you're interested, and other languages. But we have been building our German out, and we are pretty significantly on the way. So while we don't mention it very much, we pretty big in German.
The Mark Dawson actually posted his annual report on how he was doing in the German market, and because he said, I was notified that I got the Amazon, the KU bonus for his books. So he says I'm within the 100 to 150 because he only got the 500 euro. So that means 100 other books are in front of his, and shows a lot of opportunity in that market. So that's his full steam ahead. I don't think he's making as much as LMBPN in the German market right now, but he's got fewer books. So I think the market is there.
We're getting top 25 KENP bonuses on one author name and top 50 on another.
Nice.
So, now, one thing I will say is that SOB is marketing against our books. So I went in one day, and then here's our book, and it's doing, and I was looking because we had an orange tag. Right underneath it, can't put down or unput downable books, Mark Dawson. Gotta get you, Mark.
Hey, isn't it good to be in front of Mark Dawson and be the target of his advertising?
Yeah, really. I thought about that, but it's not my thing. If I seen Mark, I think I might have told him back in London, but he was incredibly busy. But yeah, it was there. It was tempting to get on Facebook and go, hey.
Yeah. Jeez, I'm up there. Stop it, because I'm up there. Don't try to knock me off. But top 25 and top 50, that's decent, really decent, good to go. And Steve said one of my series is going to be translated into German. Which one is that?
I think it is Terry Henry.
Terry Henry? Okay.
I think so. Because Jens was looking at it from the standpoint of Arthurian Gambit is popular. And the question is, as he comes off of that, people are going to be wanting to know. I mean, it's the same reason that we wrote it in the first place. Yeah.
The 150 years, yeah, because it blends in. Okay, yeah. I can see that. Good deal.
By Indie Capstone, if you're referring to 20 books to 50K, Jen, Craig, you want to go fast, Craig?
Oh, that's mine. We have about 20 applicants for the first session in Fairbanks. It's the Indie Capstone weekends. Okay. Coming in Fairbanks. So we will go through those and get some feedback to people and take a look. But it looks like it's okay, and that's going to be a test. We're going to see what's the logistics look like. What does the engagement look like? How can we improve? So those folks will be a little bit of a guinea pig, but they're going to get a lot more hands-on before and after, in order to see how we can best make this so the folks get the absolute best experience they can from it. And it's all about moving your career forward. And I hope that we can help facilitate that without carrying you, but talking to you is a little bit of a mentorship and an engagement. Not teaching people what to think, but how to think in regards when it comes to self-publishing business. Like the question on, here's an editor I can't afford. What do I do? Get an editor you can't afford. I mean, it is a very simple business question for me, but it's like, oh, but I want this guy because of X. Well, then you have to make some other money. So there's different approaches to get that. So what does it take to get what you want? And this is something that when Michael started off, when I started off, it went to that very basic thing. What do I want? And okay, I like writing great books. I want to be successful in my mind, have enough money to help other people and do things that then I want to do which you've seen through 20 books, through Indie Capstone, through the Indie Grant Program, through ISFA, and all of the things that I do. It's about giving back for me. But being successful as a science fiction author is what gives me the credibility and the ability to do that. So that's why I do what I do.
So let me touch base on the editor. And there's an individual who had mentioned, I get the impression that we didn't answer a question. We don't know who a Facebook user is. It could be 50 people, it could be whatever. But on the editor discussions, I have found it to be very polarizing. And so the person who's asking 1,000 for 105,000 words, that's right about a penny a word. That's a fine point at that one, you know. But I can tell you right now, and it's going to upset especially American editors, but we've paid as little as a quarter of a cent for editors from other countries that speak English, that are highly qualified, that are writers of their own respect. Other publishers are also capable of finding the same. It's not like we found one person. Now, they make more than that once they come into our fold, but you know, that took time. And then so you have some people where they're like, I don't do anything less than 2 cents a word. And I'm like, and I don't pay 2 cents a word. And yet our fans are incredibly happy with our work. So they're in now developmental areas, completely different and somewhat subjective statement. They might charge anywhere from 1.5 to 3 cents a word. And I think that at that point, they had better be explaining how to write in a way you want. You know, if you're going to do developmental editing, then find 3, 4, or 5 books that this editor has put some blood, sweat, and tears into, and make sure that you like the feel. If you like the feel, they're absolutely worth that money. But for me, I didn't want anyone changing my feel, and I sure as hell did not want someone telling me how to write. And I think I've earned the ability to say that there are editors that will screw you up. And that, you know, people who swear by editors don't like to hear it. And unfortunately, you know, we're the ones putting this show on at the moment. But we do put, in this case, Craig does put editor discussions in 20 books because there are many varied subjective. My statements are subjective. That's my opinion. You know, and we want to allow everybody to voice their opinions on things. But once a word, I think, is solid. Unless you get into high developmental, in which case that's cheap.
Yeah. That's editor. You have to find the person that works with you to make you better, that you accept. If they're butting heads with you, because the worst you can get is an editor with a small portfolio but a runaway bestseller, because now they think my way is right. And that's a challenge, because now they're going to start changing you. I had one editor try to change a lot of my shit, and this after I'd already published 75 or 80 books and had huge best-selling titles, have a huge fandom, and I'm looking at the new language. I'm like, but this isn't me. So yeah, I paid the money and didn't make any of the changes, and just went and actually paid for another editor to go through my book that was more in line with my style and my voice. So this is. I don't use said Bob. I don't use a passive construction for a dialogue tag ever. It's just not something I do. I like active voice. And so that's one of those things. You try to do that to me as an editor, you're out of here. So that's just no matter the price. So is it the same for the French market? I'm thinking you're talking translations. What do you think, Michael?
What I've heard, we've not tried French. We went to France a few years ago on a R&D effort for publication and taxes. And that was the French market at the time. Ebook was very nascent. They really pushed their paper books efforts. And so it was, even though my wife speaks French and studied there, we decided that it was just too early. It's too small of a population for us to do it. However, I've heard of at least 2. I know Mark is doing French, and I know of another 1 or 2 people who are just doing really well with the French market. But because of our earlier efforts when we went and studied, and, you know, science fiction is not really in their stores. You have to go find the little small stores in the small street where you have, you know, science fiction bookstore, then you have metal records bookstore, and then you have Japanimation bookstore, then you have, I mean, they're all little ones. So we chose not to go down the French, and I don't have much more information than that. And relationship, what Dean said, yeah, resonate with your editor by all means, because I listen to podcasts and the lady's like, I like it whenever this editor just rips this apart. And I'm like, nah, it's not my personality. So I wouldn't like it. I'd like to have a good conversation about it. But if I feel like they're being attacking, that's not going to work. Yep. Whatever Facebook user said, absolutely. Look for a partnership, making the best you and the best product according to you. And then you go on from there. It is absolutely about the relationship.
Yeah, and that's and talking about relationship, taking the conversation away from editors, we can beat that dead horse more. But relationships, and this is one thing that, goddamn, I really hope 20 Books Vegas goes. I'm still thinking it is, but I've gone from 100% absolutely we're going to 98%. There's still that kernel of doubt, thanks to Australia putting in travel restrictions through 2021 and New Zealand making it almost impossible for their folks to travel out of country because then they're 14-day quarantines, and I don't know what the U.S. rules will be for non-U.S. citizens traveling into the country. What kind of are they going to be required quarantine? And that kind of shit's showstoppers for our international audience. But if we can still do it within the U.S., we will, because relationships. We've had so many great relationships develop because we met the people and talked with them. And I think most of his collaborators, he met in person first before anything else and talked to them repeatedly on the phone before launching into any kind of partnership and collaboration.
No, that's not true, but go ahead. This is how shit gets happened. It's like, I don't know how.
I know I wasn't, but you called me repeatedly.
Yeah, and that part also, I did, but I didn't meet you first.
No, but you watched me for 6 or months and said, this guy has the work ethic. Because that was one of the things when you're first starting out. It's like, God, you gotta have the work ethic, because everybody wants to write a book. Very few people actually do, and then write the next book and the next book and the next book and turn it into a process and write good stories. These things aren't a given. You have to have that business application of how to master your artistry. How do you turn your art and ideas, imagination, into something that readers love? It's not an inherent talent. Storytelling, I believe, is natural for all human beings. Taking that story and making it compelling in the written word is a talent that you develop. I believe that. And now some people are going to be better at it than others at the beginning, but everybody needs to practice and work to make it something that will consistently sell. And this is the one thing you're looking for, and that's the continuous improvement. Those are the things that we look for, and what I look for in collaborators. I've had a number of people. I haven't written a book yet, but I'd love to collaborate with you. Well, yeah, no kidding. I would have loved to collaborate with somebody who carry me, because I know nothing. What you're looking for is a mentorship. How about, and this is 20 books to 50K. Here's the smorgasbord of stuff. Here's where you start. Here's where you get your silverware, and then next up is your salad. And then don't fill up on buns because if they have all you can eat meat, eat the meat. Don't fill up on bread. I mean, whatever Dad would say.
Don't add a whole bunch of carbs to your chili. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's value. Yeah. So it's that kind of approach to help you help yourself, which is the, let's say, passive mentoring, as opposed to very active. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. Because as indies, you have to be a self-starter. If you need somebody cracking the whip over your head, you're going to have a very, very difficult time as a self-published author.
The individual Justin, when you said first book in my series published within the year, if you're trying to market and publish on a budget, with the best bang for your buck in translation be German and Spanish, usually it's going to be actually your second English book is going to be your best effort in marketing. So I would just push your English stuff until you have value to go, and then I would go German, not Spanish. We have 3 Spanish books out. We're talking to people. Spanish has been notoriously difficult. Amazon doesn't have a good foothold in the Spanish market, and there's a fair amount of sticky finger issues, at least on the audio that we've been told recently. And so it's a challenging. Now we're trying to go into it, first mover advantage. We're going to be living in Mexico for half part of the year. but German is the one that we all seem to be resonating best with, which is nice. Anderle is a German surname.
Okay. I like that. The second English book is your best marketing effort. When I know when you initially approached at the London Book Fair, when you initially approached people regarding translations, other companies that did that, they weren't interested unless you had already sold about 10,000 books. I thought that was one of the first responses you got.
Yeah.
So in order to sell in Germany, it helps if you know how to sell in the US or in the UK.
Yeah, for people licensing the rights to go German, because we looked at that first. Going back to that historical question earlier in what was going on. So we did look at that first, but it has become much more profitable for us to do the DeepL and then editing and everything else, and quicker,
Well, yeah, I would always write in your native language, of course. That's a completely different issue. Writing it in French as opposed to taking your English book and saying, let me penetrate this market. So so yes, I would always encourage people, use your strengths. As putting my business hat on, as a business coach, I would say, what are your strengths? Well, French is my first language. Well, then you're already operating with a handicap by writing in English. So that's but if you're native in both English and French, well, then you can explore the French market at a much lower cost than some knucklehead like me who would have to get it translated and then count on other people to make sure it's done right.
It was interesting. A year and a half ago, a couple of Frankfurt book fairs ago, met a couple of ladies who were in a certain genre, and the lady's primary language was German, but she had lived in England for so long, and for her, it was more valuable for her to write in English, publish to that market, and pay someone to translate it back to German, because she could then be writing that next book in English.
Yeah, and that's business hat. What's the best use of your time? I saw somebody was talking about, I love playing around with covers, but it would take me forever to do a cover. And finally, I outsourced my covers because that time was more valuable writing the next book. Did we skip any questions? It's been 67 minutes, so we've been on for a while. We answered some questions. We beat some dead horses. We made shit up, like I do. But because I lost my point completely on 20 books of 50K. The relationships. Once you met Dakota Kraut, it changed your relationship, I think.
Yes.
And meeting Mark Dawson in person, meeting Kevin J. Anderson in person, those kinds of things make a difference. And none of us are fans of small talk. It's like I'm not like the master of the hook. It's just like, hey, I know who you are. You write great books. I appreciate your work. I appreciate what you're doing for indies. I mean, telling people that it's what you think. It's what you know. It's not me selling myself. And then getting into the conversation of what's the business, what's it look like ahead, what's the difference between trends and writing to market. Market is science fiction. It's the fact that Star Trek still exists and you see science fiction shows. Science fiction is still big, so that's a market. But what are these borderline, like The Expanse? Now it takes a crime drama and puts it in space and has real science in a lot of it, so it makes it compelling. That's science fiction.
Here's a couple of tidbits that was pointed out this week for me. One of them is that there are certain audio companies who are to the quote new different genres. For instance, Tantor was jumping on lit RPG a few years ago. That's new. Now, mind you, even a couple of years ago was still 2 years past when it was, we were aware of it.
Yeah.
But other ones don't at all. The library market, very much what's traditional genre based, is what I've been told. I know nothing more than what I've been told. Because just their clientele, so they're not looking for lit RPG. They're not that aware of it. And whenever they make purchases, they're looking at reviews that are online, things that they can do, or genres that they're familiar with. Well, they might not be familiar with lit RPG, and ergo, unless you get your fans in a genre that libraries don't typically purchase, your fans need to get them and encourage them to purchase your genre. So those are at least a couple of tidbits.
Yeah, and libraries, that's yet another revenue stream if you can get in there through Hoopla. If you're unique, if you're exclusive through ACX with Audible and iBooks, then that's different. You're not going to be able to get into libraries, but Findaway Voices, we found different ways to get in there. Tantor, Podium, all have access through into the libraries, I believe. And Overdrive. Yeah. And Dreamscape is also, well, Dreamscape is, I think, wholly
Sister
owned by
company
Hoopla. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, actually, it's Midwest Tape, I think, is the primary who owns these others.
Okay. So yeah, they're they're related in a way that makes it easy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there we go. Those are the final words. And just for reference, keep everybody square. It's Saturday. Okay. Yeah, you can see a little scruffly.
One little quick thing, just kind of randomly flipping through. Vicky Smith, would you make sure you get a hold of me so that I can get you a Kindle? The one that I kind of went down and said there, because I can't do Facebook users, folks. I'm sorry, but Facebook users, we have no idea who that is. Okay, good. That wasn't the one I chose, but sure, that's the same Vicky Smith.
Yeah, well, she's clearly from the Midwest, because who else would call it pop? Anyway, that's
yes,
my parents. My parents
me,
are strictly pop people, as opposed to soda people or Coke people.
Oh, I would lean into the Coke, which is everything in soda pop. I'm Texas. Not pop.
That's right.
Pop. What the hell's pop?
Yeah. Oh my God, we can't do that. Anyway, thank you for listening in. Tomorrow we have Mark Leslie Lefebvre coming to talk to us about all things, because he just knows things. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk beer. I'm sure we'll talk self-publishing and other publishing as well, because Mark publishes his own books, but then he's a representative of Drafted Digital and worked for Kobo for a while as well. So all kinds of opportunity to learn from.
Yeah, built the Kobo stuff. And to answer the question, how do we not be Facebook users? The name, I think you have to type your name out when you start to log in. Is that right, Craig?
No, there's a thing you do through Be Live. And Elaine Bateman, go up to the very front of the thread, and you'll find where Elaine Bateman said, do you want you to have your name seen? And there's an FAQ and a thing there, a link. Click on that, go take a look and see how Be Live can recognize you. It's simply, you have to give Be Live access to your Facebook profile. And that's all it is. It's give them access and give them approval to use your Facebook profile. They don't post anything on your behalf, but unless you do like we do, and that's run Be Live videos. So just tell them, yes, you can access my Facebook profile, and then we will see your name. All right, people, Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Talk to you later.